Isoleto. Isoleto. Forward ever. Forward ever. Forward ever. Solidarity forever. Can we all stand up quiet? I want to teach you some song. I'm sure you know it. It's a simple song. Solidarity forever. We shall always fight for our rights. Does anybody know it? Yes. Okay. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. We shall always fight for solidarity. Are you not seeing my comrade? You don't stand solidarity song and you are doing like this. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. We shall always fight for solidarity. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. We shall always fight for us. There is a thing we always say in the Labour movement. Isoleto, e-Africa. This is Swahili word. Isoleto, e-Africa. Yeah. So can we say it? Isoleto, e-Africa. Isoleto, e-Africa. Isoleto, e-Africa. Forward ever. Forward ever. Forward ever. Solidarity forever. Thank you very much. I want to say that I'm very delighted to be here. Like Comrade Nicholas mentioned, the moment he told me that it's a convention of socialists, I didn't hesitate to accept this invitation. But a lot of forces nearly prevented me from coming here. First was that I had to negotiate with him. Now look, my hands are so full that I cannot give more than 1 day. So I'd like to fly into Accra on Sunday evening, deliver the lecture on Monday morning, and fly back to Nigeria. I didn't know that Boga is so far away from Accra. The second thing that tried to prevent me from coming is that I have been, at one time I was the international head of campaigns of ActionAid. So I've traveled around the world, I've used 6 passports. And the mistake I made in this journey, I've never made it in all my trips. When I was living in Abuja, because you have to first fly from Abuja to Lagos 1 hour, just like from Accra to Tamale. When I was leaving Abuja, I mistakenly picked an old passport. So I got to the airport, I wanted to check it. They looked at the passport, they said, no, this is an old passport. I had to call my wife to collect my passport, send it to the airport, and they sent it from the airport from Abuja to Lagos. What only made it possible for me to come was because having delayed from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And during that period, we were trying to get my passport. As if that was not enough. When I got to Accra, You know, if you work with Nicholas, you know he's a micromanager. He will stress your life. He will do everything to the last detail. In fact, he has called me several times. He will interview you. My logistics, when you come, you will meet so person will meet you. You will go here. Taking to details. But you know what happened? He booked my flight to come here yesterday. So when I got to the airport this morning, they said, no, you were supposed to have flown since yesterday. If you are spiritual, talking about spiritual, how can a Muslim be spiritual? That is another debate altogether. But if you are spiritual, you know that when something substantial is about to happen, there will be a lot of challenges. But if you are able to overcome the challenges, it tells you that God is in that thing. And I can see Pastor putting up his hand. All right. I've listened to the presentations, and I'm quite impressed with the presentations. And I was talking to Nicholas that I strongly suggest that you put the presentations all together, maybe also with the keynote, into a small pamphlet. Socialist agenda for Ghana. And then that becomes what you give to everybody. Everybody who reads all the presentation will not be ignorant of what it is to bring socialism to Ghana. The title of the keynote address is Social Justice for Real Change. Social justice for real change. And I want to make 5 arguments. The first argument is that social justice is one of the fundamental tenets of socialism. The second argument is that in the last 30 years, supported by official statistics, Ghana has experienced economic growth. In the last 30 years, Ghana has experienced economic growth, but this economic growth has only benefited the wealthiest Ghanaians. And I argue that it is as a result of capitalist policies. Capitalist policies are made to benefit only few people all over the world. The third argument is that it is only through progressive or socialist policies and programs that we can have shared prosperity, where the benefits of economic growth will spread to every citizen. The fourth argument, and I think this is very important, and I'm happy my friend is listening, who has some challenges about the social justice movement, is the fourth argument is what makes you a socialist in a capitalist society. If you are living in a capitalist society, what makes you a socialist? What makes you a socialist in a capitalist society is your ideas, your behavior, and the type of policies and programs that you advocate for. So it's not a reflection of how poor or how rich you are, or whether you have property or you don't have property. It's your ideas, your behavior, and the type of policies and programs that you advocate for. And the fifth argument that I make is that socialists in Ghana can organize to overthrow capitalism and enthrone socialism. But they must be united. They must know what to do. They must establish the right platform and organize to bring about change. As a preamble, I want to use this opportunity to thank Comrade Nicholas Atampugre for his insistence and for making sure that I'm able to come to this convention. I want to also thank the members of the organizing committee of the Convention of Socialists for inviting me to give this keynote address. I must commend the Social Justice Movement Ghana for convening this convention, because following the counter-revolution of perestroika and glasnost, which was brought by Gorbachev, that led to the disintegration of the Soviet Union, only few people want to publicly identify themselves as socialists. And so, I really want to commend you for that. As you have heard, I am unapologetically socialist. I belong to the Socialist Congress of Nigeria, and at the time I was the Secretary for Education and Propaganda. And I bring you greetings from comrades in Nigeria. There are several comrades organizations in Nigeria, such as the Socialist Congress of Nigeria, Abuja Collective, Socialist Workers and Youth League, Labour Party, Democratic Socialist Movement, and Socialist Party of Nigeria. All these organizations are at different levels of reorganizing for political engagement. And I see this convention as a possibility to bring resurgence of socialism in the African continent. And like Nicholas said, all over the world, socialist parties are making great effort, and the Socialist Party has just won election in Mexico. In this keynote address, I want to address the concept of social justice from a socialist perspective, and I will examine how that concept has been applied in Ghana since independence, and what the socialist movement in Ghana can do to bring about real change to social justice. But first, we will look at the concept of historical materialism and social justice. If you want to be a socialist, you must be prepared to study. You must be prepared to learn. You must be prepared to know about concepts. You cannot be a socialist through theoretical and practical without knowing what is historical materialism and dialectical materialism. These are big grammar, but I will break them there. But note it, you must know historical materialism and dialectical materialism. Historical materialism is just telling us how history has moved. That all over the world, history moved from one stage to another. And that when the world started, there were no classes. Everybody was living in clan or tribe, and it was called communal society. But as people were living in communal society, family began to arise. And as family arise, private property arose. I mean, you know the work of Engel, the origin of the family and private property. And then people started conquering other ones and taking them as slaves. And that led to the slave-owning society. So the first is communal society, the second is slave-owning society. And then slaves started to organize that they want to be free. And after some time, we moved from slave-owning society to feudal society. Now the slave is now free, but he has no land. He has to work the land for the feudal lord. So though he is free, he's no longer a slave. He has to work for the former masters in order to survive. So that is how you have the serfs and the feudal lords. And then there was discovery of machine. When machine was discovered, production started. And so feudalism was no longer in vogue. And meanwhile, the feudal lords were fighting with the serfs, like Marx and Engels talked about in the Communist Manifesto, that there's always class struggle in society. So that led to capitalist society, where there was production of goods and services, where the bourgeoisie is the one who owns the means of production, and the worker will have to sell his labor power. So the former serf who was working on the land for the feudal lord, now is no longer tied to the land, he has to work in companies. So he will have to sell his labor power. And the argument is that from feudalism, it will move to capitalism. And capitalism, let me spend some time there. Capitalism is characterized, because we must, as socialists, we must know the difference between capitalism and what? Socialism. Capitalism is characterized by private ownership and control of means of production. Government ownership is discouraged. And in capitalist society, those who have capital have the potential to acquire more. And that is why, as the economy is growing in Ghana for the past 30 years, the capitalists, those who own the means of production, the wealthiest section are those benefiting from it. Government ownership is totally discouraged. So it is not an accident that today there is no Ghana Airways. Just as there is no Nigeria Airways. If you go to Ghana Airport, what you see is Africa World Airlines that is not owned by government. And if you look at it, if you look at other countries around the world, if you go to Ethiopia, you see Ethiopian Airline, which brings a lot of employment and money to the country. Even though Ethiopia today is not a socialist state, but if we look at the history of their leaders, you will understand why they have Ethiopian Air today and you don't have Ghana Air. It's the same thing with South Africa. South Africa, although it's not a socialist country today, but South African Airlines and Nigerian Airways started almost the same year with the same number of airplanes. But today, there is no Nigerian Airways, but there is South African Airlines. So it is the leadership, what kind of policies and programs have been implemented over the years that is responsible for such a situation. Now, the argument is that from capitalism, as a result of the fight between the bourgeoisie, who are the owners of means of production, and the proletariat, who are the workers, it will lead to the establishment of the socialist formation. So, and from socialist formation, it will lead to communist formation. There is a major difference between socialism and communism. The basic principle for socialism is from each according to his ability, to each according to his work. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? From each according to his ability, to each according to his work. So in a socialist society, you will see that people still earn more than others. You are paid according to your work. But it was envisaged by scholars that as socialism develops, as it leads to more technology, as the communist man is produced, it will lead to a communist society where the basic principle will be from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. No longer work. But as we all know, the collapse of socialism and the disintegration of the Soviet Union did not allow the progression to that communist state. And some people have argued that that is the end of socialism. But only, like I've argued here, that so others have said that that is not the end of socialism, that is a temporary setback. And from what we are seeing in Mexico and other places, socialism is likely to be on the march again. But the point I wanted to make is that this movement, I've talked about how many formations now. Let me see whether people are getting. How many formations have I mentioned? 5 formations. From communal to what? To slave owning. From slave owning to feudalism. From feudalism to? From capitalism to?
Socialism.
And then from socialism to?
Communism.
Can we go again? From communal to? Count.
Slave.
From slave owning to?
Feudalism.
From feudalism to?
Capitalism.
From capitalism to?
Socialism.
From socialism to?
Communism.
If you are a socialist, you must understand this. It's basic. But this movement is directed by the laws of dialectics. This one, I will explain it briefly. It may be difficult, but it's simple. There are 3 main laws of dialectics. The first law is called the law of the unity and conflict of opposites. Can we say it together? Unity and conflict of opposites. That means that in every society, you have 2 main forces that are opposed to each other. In slave, any class society, apart from the communal society that we talked about, in slave owning, you have slaves and slave owners. In feudal, you have feudal lords and serfs. In capitalism, you have the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. And these 2 people are always united to produce goods and services, for instance, in capitalism. But they are always struggling. So that's why we say unity and conflict of opposites. The worker is always struggling. The pensioner is always struggling. It's not accident. Meanwhile, the ruling class is, when they want to cut costs, the first thing they do is to retrench workers. They will not cut costs of their benefits. So, the unity and conflict of opposites. The second law is the law of passage from quantitative to qualitative changes. That means that in every society, changes will be taking place small until we reach a tipping point. And then you see revolution and big changes. And then the third law is the law of negation of the negation. That means that one formation will arise to negate the former one. So you have communal society, slave owning come to negate it. And you have slave owning, feudal world come to negate it. You have feudal capitalist come to negate it. And this capitalist society will be negated by what? Socialism. So that is how society develops. So let's come to the concept of social justice. Concept which is the main thing for this program. The concept of social justice has attracted the attention of several scholars and philosophers over the past 3 centuries. Many people have written on social justice: Thomas Paine, John Rawls, John Stuart Mill, and so on. But a simple definition is that social justice is a concept of fair and just relation between individuals and society, characterized by 3 things. How many things? Number 1 is fair distribution of wealth. Fair distribution of wealth. So, if you are a member of social justice movement, you believe in fair distribution of wealth. The man in where does the country come it should be distributed among everybody, not a few. The second thing is opportunities for all. Opportunities for all. Not opportunities for the children of the rich. And no opportunity for the children of the poor. The first generation of socialists that were talked about here, I'm sure what made them socialists was because they had opportunity to go to school. And the type of school, the type of education they received at that time, I don't know their background, but I'm sure if it is now, their parents will not be able to afford it. So we see a progressive degeneration in society. That what our forefathers handed over to us, we can't hand it over to our children. When I went to the university, I don't know how it was in Ghana then, but everything was subsidized. We had meal ticket, pay a little token. Every Sunday afternoon and Wednesday evening, one person is entitled to half chicken. Half chicken. You know? When we were in the university, government, every university student is paid bursary by government. Thank you. Every university student was paid bursary, paid money to go to university. So opportunities. So even though we come from a humble background, today we have equalized with the children of the rich. But today in Nigeria, unless your children go to private school, I'm not sure they can reach where I've reached today. So, opportunities for all. That is the second thing. How many things did I say? How many have I given now? And then the last one is privileges, not for a few. So if there's any privilege in society, it goes to all. So three things that define social justice. Fair distribution of wealth, equal opportunities, and privileges not for a few, but for all. So how do you ensure that this happens in every society? It happens through taxation. And my brother talked about it. A woman will take his fowl to the market, they tax it. Multinational corporations, they are not taxing, they give them tax waivers. In a fair society, those who make more money should be taxed more. So it's mediate social justice. You bring about social justice, you redistribute wealth in society through taxation. You do that through social insurance. That everybody is insured. So when you are sick, you just go to the hospital, you get free treatment. Through public health, that public hospitals are good. When you go there, you have good health care. Not the medical tourism that we see. Every rich man, when he is sick, he go abroad for treatment. Through public services, not privatization of water, or privatization of public services, or privatization of electricity. The government will provide these services. Through good labor law that ensures good pension. Through regulation of the market. Because if you allow the forces of market to determine things, only the strong and powerful will survive. And all of these things will ensure fair distribution of wealth, opportunities for all and privileges not for the few. So, we see that all over the world, there have been struggle for equity and justice. And like I said earlier, there are two fundamental tenets of socialism. How many tenets? Number one is equality. That every human being is born free and equal. And number two is social justice. So if you are a socialist, you must believe in equality of all persons and social justice. Therefore, in a society where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few people, social justice will ensure that there are policies and programs that will lead to redistribution of wealth. So as Ghana is today, if the social justice movement organizes and takes over power, then they will redistribute the tax system, they will put money in public service, they will put money in education, they will give social services to everybody, and then the economy of Ghana will change. It was this kind of thinking that made Kwame Nkrumah to talk about social justice. So in terms of public officials, Kwame Nkrumah was the first person to popularize the concept of social justice in his work, Neo-Colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. So social justice was one of the core principles of Nkrumah's party, Convention People's Party. But since then, till today, apart from the lip service paid to social justice by the J.J. Rawlings regime, every regime in Ghana has been capital. And they made no pretensions at all to bringing about any social justice. The governments of Dankwa, government of Busia, government of Kupo, and even the present, the immediate past one and the present one are all implementing neoliberal economic policies. And they don't even talk about social justice. They don't talk about that they want to redistribute wealth and give it to. They don't even talk about it. And because of this, what has happened is that in the last 30 years, inequality has been increasing in Ghana, with wealth and privilege concentrated in the hands of the few. Official statistics show that Ghana has been growing at a growth rate of over 7% on the average since 2005. But what have we seen? And I quote, inequality has been on the rise in Ghana since 1992. From 1992 to date, when we say inequality, we are saying the difference between the rich and poor people. It has been what? Increasing, widening since 1992. The Gini coefficient, that is an economic term, economist. Maybe you explain later. Gini coefficient is a measure of the difference between rich and poor people. And what this statistic is showing is that it has risen from 37 in 1992 to 41 in 2013. The bigger it is, the bigger the gap between the rich and the poor. What stands out for Ghana is that the highest level of inequality are now registered within certain regions. The Upper West region has the highest level of inequality in the country and the largest increase in inequality since the 1990s. The lowest level of inequality is found in the Greater Accra region. This means that in some districts, communities, or groups of people in certain regions, especially in the north, are being left behind, and they are missing out on recent economic growth. You know, as I was driving from Tamale to Bolga, the parallel between Nigeria and Ghana came very clear to me. Because in Nigeria, the percentage of poverty in Lagos is about 9%. But the percentage of poverty in Zamfara is 88%. As I was coming, as I was seeing the vegetation, the architectural design of the houses, the parallel between northern Ghana and northern Nigeria was very clear to me. Going forward, national policy will need to address this phenomenon and ensure that the poorest benefit more equitably. Inequality has also increased for rural areas, and the north of the country as a whole now has the highest level of inequality. End of quote. These policy prescriptions that they need to change policy so that the poorest will benefit is good. But the reality is that capitalism, by nature and logic, favors the rich and powerful. So there is no way a capitalist government, as we have now in Ghana, as we have been having except Nkrumah, can bring about policy that will favor poor people. In the last 30 years, the wealthiest people benefited from the growth of the economy in Ghana. And the inequality between the rich and the poor has widened. My dear brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, you can only imagine what will happen in the next 30 years. What will happen to the children of the poor in the next 30 years unless the social justice movement in Ghana does something drastic. For the last 30 years, this is the major point of this lecture. For the last 30 years, inequality has been increasing in Ghana. The children and descendants of the rich are becoming richer, while the children and descendants of the poor are becoming poorer. If this trend continues for the next 30 years, what will happen to the children of the poor can just be better imagined. That is why I argue that all socialists in Ghana must come together to move Ghana from capitalism to socialism. But you know, all over the world, there has been some debate about who is a socialist. And my friend, I think you need to listen to this. Who is a socialist? And who can bring about socialist transformation? Because we want at the end of this program, at the end of this convention, for people like you to now believe on the cause of social justice movement. One scholar attempted to provide an answer from which we quote elaborate. He says to be a socialist as a sociologist understand it, is to be restrained in one feeling or thought and their material expressions. Material expression, even if you have property, how do you do it? You know, because you have money, you buy gold, your 10 fingers. Eh? A socialist will not dress like that. Am I communicating? Hello, am I communicating? Your material expressions, your feelings, your thought, your material expression, to be thinking of others as of yourself, to be as much self-regarding as others regarding, not to be selfish and oppressive, but be sympathetic and respectful to the needs and difficulties of one fellow human being. That's how to be a socialist. But to be a capitalist is to be seen, because capitalism is the opposite of socialism. A capitalist is driven by insatiable profit motive. What concerns a capitalist is how he can make a profit. A capitalist is self-centered, is exploitative, unsympathetic, and disrespectful to the needs and difficulties of his fellow human beings. Therefore, in the struggle to move Ghana from capitalism to socialism, the ideas, the thinking, the behavior, and policy to program prescription of socialists in Ghana will be very important. We have always argued that for any society, because we are talking about real change, for any society to change requires the presence of two factors. How many factors? Number one factor is what we call objective conditions. For change to happen in a society, the way things are going must be bad. That people will say, no, we don't want it, we can't continue like this. It must be unsustainable. And I know that from the last 30 years of increasing inequality in Ghana, that the rich is becoming richer and the poor is becoming poorer. I know from the level of corruption in Ghana, as we have seen from investigative journalists, and how corruption is going on in judiciary, from the report that we have read, that there is serious problem in Ghana, and that the objective conditions for change, majority of Ghanaians, we want a change from this system. Am I right?
Yes.
But there is a second factor. Tell your neighbor there is a second factor. So it's not only the existence of the objective conditions. You need what we call subjective conditions. And the subjective conditions for change is the organizational preparedness for change. The vanguard movement that will be able to galvanize Ghanaians, that will be come out and say, no, for the past 30 years, the rich have shortchanged us. For the past 30 years, all the efforts of government in Ghana favors only rich people. And the rich people are very few. We Ghanaians can no longer accept this. And they rise up. And then there is a movement. There is an organization with people who are planning and directing and doing this. The change will happen. Ghanaian socialists have a historic duty to bring about that change. In fact, it was from Nkrumah we learned that do not agonize, but organize. So the greatest challenge that I leave with you is to go and organize. I know that it's difficult to organize under present day. I know that when you have a program like this, people want to be paid. But not all Ghanaians are stupid. Not all Ghanaians are useless. Not all Ghanaians are unsympathetic. Not all Ghanaians want the status quo to continue. So the challenge is for those of you who have identified that there is a need for socialist Ghana to begin to organize. You can't tell me that each of you cannot mobilize 5 people. Am I communicating? So I want to challenge you. Next year's convention should not be having empty chairs. It is possible you can do it. I was just talking to Nicholas. In 1954, Fidel Castro and 11 other people, only 12 of them, attacked the Batista regime of Cuba, attacked the Moncada barracks. Only 12 people attacked a whole country's army. They were repelled. Because how can 12 people defeat a nation's army? But after that, they started propaganda. They upped the game. And what happened? Within 6 years, they succeeded in overthrowing the Batista regime. So what you need is organization. Social justice is about even distribution of wealth and opportunities. Since independence, apart from the brief period of Kwame Nkrumah, the 2 ruling parties in Ghana are essentially 2 sides of the same coin, implementing capitalist programs and policies. For there to be real change in Ghana, we require Ghana to move from capitalism to socialism. Now, I address what do you need to do in order for this to happen? What do you need to do in order for this to happen? 4 things that I have outlined. Number 1, you have to increase your knowledge about how capitalism operates in Ghana. You must know how is it that they are doing this economy that is benefiting only the rich and not the poor. That is the first thing. The second thing is that you must understand and also show to the Ghana working people what change to socialism will mean for Ghana. If Ghana today, through the work of the social justice movement, comes to power, as the convener mentioned in his speech, that is about mobilizing other people, other progressive forces, and as the PDM man mentioned in his speech. So you must identify all the progressive forces in Ghana and begin to say, this is what we do to enthrone socialism. But people of Ghana, they are not stupid. If they know what socialism means for them, if they know that a socialist Ghana will mean that taxation will become more progressive, and the woman who goes to sell the fowl will not be taxed more than the businessman. If they know that if anything happens for them, to them, they have social security. If they know that if they are sick, they can have free medical treatment. If they know that their children will have access to education. If they know that water will not be privatized. If they know that if socialism comes to Ghana, wealth will no longer be concentrated in the hands of a few, then they will support the socialist movement. The third thing is to know what kind of political action to take. You must ensure that majority of the working people in Ghana understand socialism and they want it. And remember that in the 1980s, we were organizing in Nigeria. And organization for socialist change became very hard. The government now instituted a debate to ask Nigerians, what kind of system do you want? Do you know the verdict? If you go and study Nigeria Political Bureau report, it came out that Nigerians said they want socialism. At that time, how were we party? Socialist Congress of Nigeria. There is a cell. And in the cell, every week, the workers will sit down and discuss. That's why I said, if you want to be a socialist, you must read. You must discuss. And then some of us will be moving from one factory to the other, teaching people, discussing with them. When we go to the cell meeting at that time, and then we start that, you know, socialism is good, capitalism is bad. They say, that's all. Don't tell us that capitalism is bad. We know, because it's our living experience, including the collapse of Soviet Union, which was giving inspiration that everything has changed today. But like the convener and Nicola said, there is a resurgence. And you know, these issues were started by people like Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere in Africa. Ghana cannot take part in the resurgence of socialism in the African continent. That will be a great disservice to the spirit of Kwame Nkrumah. So you must create consciousness among the working people, so that they will move from what we call a class in itself to a class for itself. What does that mean? It means that poor people in Ghana, you know, I don't even know how many people here know that even official statistics say that for 30 years now, that the resources of Ghana is being put in the hands of people. What we mean by a class in itself is that you will recognize that you are poor and you are different from the ruling class. But a class for itself will not just recognize that we belong to the oppressed. They will mobilize and do something. Do you know what will happen? If all the poor people in Ghana say they are united, you know what will happen? All these people you see, the ruling class, they are cowards. Do you know that?
Yes.
They will run. They will run. I'm telling you with their leg, they will run. So what you need to do is to mobilize the working people so that they become a class for itself. You must organize under a socialist movement. Just that you need to up your game. And you must contest for power. You cannot be a socialist and what makes you a socialist? That's one mistake we made in Africa. In those days, many socialists were lecturers. So the socialism is that you go to the symposium and accuse the ruling class. And then you go to the club in the evening to drink beer. And then you say, we tell you that. No. That's not. A socialist must contest for power. So that you change from capitalist society to socialist society. And a socialist must engage in class struggle. And class struggle has different dimensions. There is economic struggle through the labor unions. You know, there is social struggle in terms of behavior. There is ideological struggle in terms of which ideas are better for society. But there is also political struggle, which involves participation even in bourgeois politics. And I want to let you know that I have an experience in trying to run for governorship in Delta State, one of the states in Nigeria, in 2015. It was a rich experience that I got from that exercise. Because Delta State is more than, in terms of population, more than 60 countries in the world. In terms of population. Because the population is over 5 million. States like Gambia is 2.something million. Sierra Leone is less than 3 million. So if you look at it as a state, so my plan was that if I become governor, I will operate that place like a president. I don't know whether you understand. And make the state different from every other state. And we have experience in history. There are 50 states in India. 50 states in India. One of the states called the state of Kerala. The people through local, so you can even start it from Boga or from the entire Upper East region. People from Kerala organized socialist movement in Kerala, and they took power. For many years, I don't know whether the people there are listening. For many years, only socialists were ruling Kerala. All the other 49 states in India are capitalists. But in Kerala is socialism. And you see, their state-owned enterprises were running profitably. You know, the social indicators, the development indices in Kerala is different from every other state in India. They have the highest rate of education. You can double-search it. State of India, state of Kerala. They have the highest level of education, literacy rate. They have the highest level of life expectancy and the lowest level of maternal mortality. So just by taking only one state and bringing socialist policies leads to improvement in the quality of life of citizens. When I did that, I only did the initial consultation. I didn't go far. But I want to let you know that politics, participating in politics, requires a lot of money. I spent over 100 million, which is about 1 million cities, just to do consultation. And I want to challenge other notions that many old socialists normally have. That socialism is not synonymous with poverty. Or you are living in a capitalist society and you refuse to raise money. You can't be holding conferences every time and complaining of no money. Otherwise, these young people will run away. They must be trained that as socialists in capitalist society, you can make money. In fact, in those days, socialist organizations set up enterprises to raise resources. In fact, you know, in those days, they can even go and rob banks. You know, because I raise resources for the use of the revolution. But that's not what we are advocating. We are advocating that you must look for ways. I'm not a government contractor, so it's not from government I got the money I use. It's from contractors. I do transport, I do fish farming, and I do all the things that I do that my government will not like. Land speculation. Hello? What do I mean by land speculation? Buy land today at a cheap rate. After a few years, you sell it. There are many of these people, they don't go to work. They don't sit down and make money. I don't know whether you understand. That's why the rich is becoming richer. If you put 2 million cedis in Nigeria, if you put 2 million cedis in Nigerian stock exchange, and you don't work, do you know what you will get in a year? 340,000 cedis. Every year. So many people, what they do is just to put the money in stock exchange and be collecting the money every month. So what I'm saying is that as socialists, we must teach ourselves how to make money to pursue the revolution. And when you want to participate in politics, there is what one of my friends called the 5 gods of election in Africa. He said there are 5 gods. So if you want to participate in politics, you must worship those gods. Number 1 is God of the election management body. That is the Electoral Commission. The second is God of security. So both the formal security and informal security. Use technicality to remove it. And the fourth is the God of mobilization. If you want to win election, you must mobilize. And the fifth is God of money. But for us as socialists, we need to focus more on the God of mobilization. Because there are 3 ways by which you can get power. You can get power through monopolistic strategy, where you come and destroy all opponents and you become the only force. Or you can get power through oligopolistic strategy, where you look for power caucuses across the country and you go into alliance with them. Or you get power through distinctive strategy, where you mobilize the people. When the people rise up, no force in the world can stop. And what I suggest is that as socialists, we should use the distinctive strategy. My dear brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, the concept of social justice is very important for progress and development of society, as it addresses the challenges of distribution of wealth, opportunities and privileges. Social justice is one of the fundamental tenets of socialism. The concept of social justice is not new to Ghana, as it was first popularized by President Kwame Nkrumah. But after Nkrumah, apart from the lip service during the regime of J.J. Rawlings, all governments in Ghana have implemented capitalist neoliberal policies that have led to increased inequality in the country. In order to arrest the rising inequality in Ghana, socialists in Ghana must organize to move the country from socialism to capitalism. In order to do this, they must create the organizational base, the subjective condition for change to happen. As the high inequality has already created the objective condition for change. Socialists in Ghana must increase their knowledge of how capitalism is impoverishing the working people, while at the same time concentrating the wealth of the country in the hands of the few people. They must also show what change socialism will mean for Ghana, and how institutions of the state, taxation, public services, public education, programs and policies will be made to favor the people. Finally, socialists in Ghana must outline a political program to take over power from the ruling parasitic class in Ghana. It was Fanon who said, every generation out of relative obscurity must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. And Ebongo counseled us that for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Finally, Frantz Fanon told us that the future will have no pity for those men and women who, possessing the exceptional privilege of being able to speak the words of truth to their oppressors, are taking refuge in attitude of passivity, of mute indifference, and in some cases of cold complicity. Solidarity forever. God bless you.
I'll go straight to the point. My issue people themselves that are supposed to make change are not convicted enough. So for instance, assuming you had won that Delta State seat, but the people that you are working with, how do you move the people to get that conviction? Because many a time in Ghana now, we blame our leaders for corruption. But I think the worst corruption is what we experience day in, day out at the institutions, where people will not treat you unless you are paying extra, where things that you want to be given free, you have to pay for them. And I think that these are the basic things that need addressing. And what are some thoughts you have towards making change in these basic systems? And just not the policies. Because most of the times you can have good policies, but implementations are good problems. Thank you.
Well, I'm not entirely, and I repeat, I'm not entirely against socialism because I know the numerous advantages of socialism. We talk about the utilization of resources, proper utilization of resources. You talk about a lot. But critics have come to condemn socialism to death. Critics have come to condemn socialism to death because of some factors. They talk about the fact that it encourages laziness, and there's burden on the countries, there's burden on government. So don't you think, as a developing country, we want to be developed, why don't we pave way to just bring in capitalism to make sure we're able to get there? I think that is my worry about socialism. Sure, thank you.
Socialism is a recipe for laziness. Let me just take one last one and allow us to respond. And let me take my other brother.
Well, I have a deep worry. What I've been thinking about, and this talk has made the situation worse. And that is, as we are all sitting here, all are very social. But when it happens that any of us gets to leadership position, it becomes something different. We suddenly become Catholic and then we go out through it. So that's my problem that I'm worried about. I don't know how we can deal with it.
We will allow our children to respond to it, but they are all very pertinent questions. What we are saying is spot on. That many people who talk like this don't walk the talk. They are like this today, everyone is our head. They are different people.
Thank you very much. These are very, very important questions. On each of them, there can be a lecture for another 1 hour. Leadership, if people trying to make change, how do you move people to get conviction? Let me, where's my sister? You know, when I was trying to contest for governorship in Delta State, I would go out and talk. No, you have talk and say, look, why we are not developing these things because they are stealing the money. If I become governor, if you steal the money, you go to jail. So, some people have been following me every day. So one day when we got home, one of them came to me, he said, oh, all these things you say outside, do you need it? I said, yes. He said, so if you become governor, if I steal money, you will send me to jail. Do you understand? I said, why do you think I talk with that? If I become governor, why do you steal money? He said, no, if you give me contract to do something, I chop it. I don't do it. Will you send me to jail? So I asked him, I think you know about government contract. If I give you contract of 100 million feet, which profit do you think you will make? He said, government contract is very good. You will make profit of 50 million. No, that is true. With many government contract, 50%. I said, so if I'm governor and you do contract, you know I will approve your payment. So why will you steal? I said, oh, your government will not be sweet. So I can relate to what you are saying. But I think the thing is to show leadership. When a leader is consistent and follow, the others will show leadership. My friend who said he's not entirely against socialism, but critics saying that socialism brings laziness. That is very, very far from the truth. If you remember what I said socialism is from each according to his ability. To each according to what? In fact, it's capitalism that brings people can speculate. That's why some of the capitalism we call them capitalism. If you understand the capitalist system, you don't need to work. If you have little resources, you just invest them and wait. So socialism does not bring laziness. It's actually capitalism that brings laziness. And capitalism cannot lead us there. Because when you talk about development, what do you want to see? Is it buildings or improvement in the quality of life of people? You know, when I went to Kathmandu in no, not Kathmandu, this place in Kerala, I'm forgetting the name of their capital. When I went there, I thought from what I've read that they have a high standard of living, increased education, that when I reach there, I will see skyscraper, I will see people drinking in streets. When I read, they are kind of happy. That's the way they dress. But their quality of life has improved. So, development is about quality of life of citizens. Your worry is a legitimate worry. Because we see many examples. But the point is this. If you look at, in fact, we've worked with many of these people. If you look at the people, that's always my response. It's not everybody in the movement that are really in the movement. I mean, what is Benjamin? You saw them 40 years ago. Were they the only two people you saw 40 years ago? Where are the remaining? Am I communicating? So some people, they use this socialism as a platform to get power. In their mind, in their character, in their conduct, there's nothing socialism. I'm telling you, I know many of them, we work together. But the thing is to see, it's like Christianity today. The fact that there are fake pastors does not mean that there are no genuine. You get the point? So the point is to make yourself a genuine social who is interested in bringing better materials. Because if you look at the bad people, you will not develop society. There's a singer in my group who said, any person who wants to repair a country does not look at the bad people. You look at the good people.
Feel free to apply the money, knowing very well that you are contributing to the social justice movement. There are 10 topics on the table.